But if we have larger federating units, do you think we can manage it, especially with all these agitations concerning people wanting to create more things than having a larger one?
It all depends upon the way you look at it. Personally, I have a feeling that it's always the elites. Everybody wants to create a kingdom for himself. He wants to aspire to be a governor or a senator. But look at it more seriously. What do you really need? You need an infrastructure. Our rail lines need to be developed. Our ports need to be developed. Our roads need to be developed. If you look at the roads in this country, it's terrible. And then you are trying to invite an investor. You have to make the situation conducive for him to invest. And this demands a lot of money. And when you have 80% of your money going in for recurrent, well, our recommendation is that it should be at least the minimum of 30-40. It used to be 60-40 at one time. But you see, now it is about 80 to just 20. So you can see that there's actually a vacuum that needs to be filled very well.
You talked about the elites, wanting to be governors or wanting to be senators or what have you. I mean, everybody wanting their own fiefdoms, as it were. A lot of people have suggested that one of the ways to ensure that people work for what they get is to ensure that the center becomes less attractive. Do you think that the conference was able to make much progress in that area?
Not to the best of what one should like to see being done. But you see, you can make the center less attractive if you have a stronger federating unit. But when you are creating additional 18 states from what we have, I can't see how the center will be less attractive. But if you have a stronger federating unit, then definitely the issue of the center being less attractive will be there. Then you can strengthen the position of the local governments.
Is this something you
But as it is now, the decision of the conference is to retain the states as the federating units and to create more states.
Is this something you would have recommended in terms of having stronger federating units? A lot of people were suggesting going back to the
even during the 2005 political reform conference. My own idea has always been to go in for a stronger federating unit. I've always been saying that one.
How did you think this was going to be achieved?
It could have been, but as I said, it's already going now. We have taken a decision, and the decision is to the effect that the states will be the federating units. And then we have recommended, as it is, even if it was after the decision of the committee that handled that one, that the co-chairman came out with the idea of these 18 new states. But the decision that the committee came out with was that there should be one additional state in the south is for the purpose of equality of the states in the zone. And then the other states should follow the normal process. But then suddenly the issue of this 18 state came in. But I think the National Assembly, which is best fitted to look at this issue very well, should do a thorough job, I'm sure.
But what's your impression about the system of governance that we have? I mean, you have heard people talk about the parliamentary system as opposed to the presidential system because it costs a lot more to maintain the presidential one contrary to the parliamentary one.
Some of us came in and, I could say, made towards the tail end of the parliamentary system. We admit the fact that, except from what you read in the book, a number of people who are at the age of 50 only knew the presidential system and then the military administration. But look at it basically. Even in the presidential system, you can save costs. Instead of having the bicameral, in fact, one of the recommendations is to have only one legislative house instead of having the two. So you see, and then at the same time, you can reduce the cost of running government even at the state level. When you have 2 southern, 1 southern special assistants and whatever, are seriously uncalled for. There are ways that you can reduce the cost of running government even under presidential system. But I believe that the idea of the parliamentary system is to have the check and balances within the same sitting. Your ministers are members of the parliament, they can be questioned and then they can be answered. And that is actually the first system of the government that we started with. But you see, the idea of having a stronger character that will unify the country, I mean, that was the thinking of the military. And that is the basis of having a presidential system that is a person that is going to be elected nationwide. In a parliamentary system, you're only going to be from your own domain, and then the party will decide who is going to be the prime minister. So both of them have got the cases. In fact, left to me, you can still continue with the presidential system, but you can still reduce the cost of running a presidential government.
You know, you talked about the unity of the country being one of the major purposes of the conference. Now, there are those who are afraid that it's not possible to attain unity without justice. What remarkable differences or what remarkable changes did the conference look at making in the area of the judiciary?
Now, the issue of justice is important that not even in running government, even in running your own house, if there is no justice, you cannot expect anything positive to come out of it. There is the need for one to look at it holistically. There is actually the need to be fair in whatever one is doing. If you look at the first parliamentary session that was started, and despite all that these people were able to put together, you look at the leaders of the then regions, the Tafawa Baleos, the Prime Minister, the Sardonas, the Awolos, the Azikwes, and look at what they have, or what they left on the ground. Even today, anybody who opens his mouth is going to talk about Sardona after so many years of the demise of Sardona, may his soul rest in peace, because of what he has done, because of the desire to build the North and desire to at least deprive yourself of certain benefits for the purpose of your people. These are the qualities that we actually lack in the current political leaderships across the country. I'm not saying all of them. There are quite a number of people that are really committed and selflessly doing the best they can. But the generality of it, if you look at it from the chairmen of local government and what have you, these are the issues. But you cannot do justice when there is a lot of personal interest in what you are doing. The basic thing, as you rightly stated out there, is that you cannot have fairness without having justice on the ground.
Well, okay, let's look at the judiciary in particular, because they will help to enforce the Constitution and the documents when they eventually passed into law. Did you look at making any differences or any changes in the judiciary, in the structure of the judiciary, and how they enforce the laws?
There has been some recommendation towards that from the Judicial Committee. You see, the basic issue, you cannot take away the judiciary from the society that you are in. It's actually not the judiciary, even the legislature. The legislators are supposed to checkmate the excesses of the executive. And then the judiciary is supposed to interpret the laws after being enacted. But has the excesses of the executive been checkmated by the legislature? These are questions that we should all ask ourselves. So basically, the judiciary cannot be carved out of the society. The ills are ills generally of the society's ills. And we need to checkmate and then ask our own conscience whether what is actually happening to us as individuals, we have to change our own approach. Because you cannot carve, but there has been a lot of recommendation towards the appointment of the judges, and we believe that it has to go along with seniority. If you look at it of recent, there has been these problems in Adamawa, there has been a problem in River State of who is to become the chief judge of that state. So, as I said earlier, the entire system needs to look at itself and then holistically reassess where we are heading to.
How did the discussion play out in terms of what becomes of the recommendation of this conference?
As I said earlier, there are 3 stages that has been recommended. One is whatever is going to be an executive decision, the government can take a decision as it feels deemed. Then what needs legislation should be sent back to the National Assembly. What needs constitutional amendment should be also sent to the National Assembly and put along with the other recommendation of the constitutional amendment that has already been going on for quite some time. This was why it has been put forward.
Do you think
we felt the other addition is to look at the civil society groups and see whether they can be part of those that will put pressure in all the arms of the government to see to the implementation of most of the decisions that have been reached by the conference.
Do you think that we'll be having another conference soon, or do you think that to a large extent we have been able to address some of the issues that plague us as a nation with this conference?
We did, but one cannot rule out the possibility, because you see, this is not a sovereign conference. People have been calling for a sovereign conference where the structures will be dissolved and then you decide which way to go forward. But then there is also the need to look at what I have said earlier. Maybe somebody will come in and think the same way that we need to reduce the cost of running government, we need to reduce the structures of the government so that we can have enough money for capital projects. As I said, my concern is actually the demand of infrastructure in this country is so enormous that with a budget of 80-20 in favor of recurrent, I don't think we are going anywhere. This has been my position.
You don't think that the conference and the recommendations, I mean, in that voluminous draft, wasn't able to address that imbalance in terms of how we allocate resources for both recurrent and capital expenditure?
No, we have made recommendation to minimum of 60-40. We have made recommendation to that, and we hope it is going to be implemented. It's a step forward, and I think that is going to be a good thing to start.
My point is that it's not so much in the recommendation, but in terms of how the structure is from the recommendations, it automatically will mean that we will be able to get the 60-40 arrangement that is ideal for our system to be able to grow.
Yeah. As a start, I think that is quite a good idea. If the government will decide to look at it and start that way, 60-40, that would be fantastic as a start. And I think gradually, when you reduce the cost of running, it will move forward to about 70-30. It used to be about 70-30 at one time. So I believe with 60-40, if you start that way, we'll be going somewhere.
Are you happy with the outcome of this conference? Are you satisfied?
No, I am to a larger extent. I am. The only area that I think we need to look seriously is how to strengthen what is now going to be part of the state, that is the local government. You see, the problem with the local government structure is that the names of those local government has been part of the schedule of the 1999 Constitution. And the Constitution provides for the states to create local governments, and that has always been the dilemma. How can you create a local government when there is already the names of those local governments there? But the recommendations of the committee was to the effect that the state should take over the existing local governments so that the local, then the revenue mobilization committee be set up at the state level to monitor those funds that are going to go to the local government. They could decide to reduce or to add the local government as it is. And I hope this has been reflected in the final report of the amendment of the 1999 Constitution.
All right, thank you, Ambassador, for speaking with us today on Sunrise Daily.
It's a great one and privilege. Thank you very much.
All right, so there you have it. Ambassador Ibrahim Mai-Sule is a member, delegate at that conference which just wrapped up, and is also a member of the Arewa Consultative Forum, speaking to us about the outcome of the national conference.